Millionaire CEO left speechless after discovering the truth about the black janitor's secret. Jonathan Archer's skyscraper office shone like a beacon against the thunderstorm snarling outside. Rain battered the glass like a relentless drum, water tracing frantic rivers down the windows. New York's usual roar was muffled by the storm, but inside, the atmosphere was thick with power, greed, and unspoken rivalries. Jonathan sat behind his massive mahogany desk, fingers steepled, eyes gleaming with the satisfaction of his latest hostile takeover. He was on top of the world. The city bowed beneath him, his empire a colossus of deals and influence. Yet tonight, something strange pulled at the edges of his ironclad certainty. Marcus, the janitor, a shadow who moved quietly through the hallways every evening, had always been invisible to Jonathan. A simple presence, a nothing. Yet tonight, as the wind howled and shadows stretched like claws in the corridor, curiosity, sharp and sudden, seized him. Drawn to a forgotten service corridor that Marcus slipped into every night, Jonathan followed at a distance, heart racing with a mix of suspicion and something colder. The corridor was lined with peeling paint and dingy light bulbs, hanging like tired sentinels. Then he saw it. A door, small, unnoticed, buried behind crates and stacks of cleaning supplies. Marcus slid a key from his pocket, a metallic glint that froze Jonathan's throat. The door clicked open to reveal a hidden world behind the mundane. Inside, walls were covered with canvases, vibrant, haunting, alive, stunning paintings, meticulous sketches, bursts of raw color that exploded in the gloom. The art was breathtaking. It pulsed with stories, pain, joy, rebellion, all preserved in the midst of dust and neglect. Marcus had collected this secret world, painting his soul onto every surface, hiding decades of history behind those drab corridors. Jonathan's breath hitched. He stepped closer, eyes wide, hands trembling. The stark contrast hit him like a punch to the gut. Beneath the janitor's worn uniform lay a hidden universe that dazzled and terrified. Who was this man, really? The quiet figure who cleaned his office was a keeper of memories and struggles that money couldn't buy. That shattered Jonathan's neat little world. Suddenly, the empire, the deals, the cold logic, all seemed brittle, fragile. The door creaked. Marcus's voice, low and steady, barely a whisper, froze Jonathan in place. "You found it." Jonathan turned, searching the janitor's face, trying to read what lay beneath the calm exterior. Was it defiance, pain, or a challenge? Questions crashed through Jonathan like thunder. What was Marcus hiding? Why all this care, this passion buried away? And could the truth shatter everything Jonathan thought he owned, including himself? The night thickened. The storm raged on, but inside that tiny hidden room, a different storm was breaking loose, one that would breach walls far beyond these grimy corridors. Jonathan's heart hammered. His world tilted. The janitor, once invisible, held a secret powerful enough to upend everything. What came next? Jonathan wasn't sure he wanted to know. But he couldn't turn away. Not now. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And while you're there, drop a powerful like. It really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Jonathan's heart raced like a trapped bird. The janitor stood before him, a quiet storm masked by calmness, a world of secrets hidden behind his uniform. You found it. Those words hung heavy, vibrating with an unseen weight. What truth lay behind Marcus's steady gaze, so deeply contrasting with the vibrant chaos of the hidden room? Suddenly, the lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows on Marcus's painted canvases, warping the brilliance into grotesque nightmares. The wind howled outside, drowning out what felt like the universe screaming to be heard. As Jonathan opened his mouth to ask the questions swirling in his mind, a sharp crash echoed through the corridor, knocking over cleaning supplies like dominoes. Jonathan flinched, adrenaline surging as he turned toward the sound. "What was that?" he demanded, spirit faltering, pulse quickening. The shadows stretched longer, darker, and the air thickened with anticipation. Marcus's expression shifted, his calm facade cracking like glass. "We need to leave. Now." But before Jonathan could respond, a group of suits burst into the room, led by a glacial woman in a crisp blazer, Fiona, Jonathan's top executive. Her eyes glinted coldly, like shards of broken glass. The men behind her looked like wolves poised to pounce. "Look what we have here," Fiona sneered, her voice a serpentine hiss. The mighty CEO reduced to following a janitor. Pathetic. Jonathan stood there, confusion mingling with icy dread. "What are you doing here?" 1,000 scenarios raced through his mind. "Everything is about to change, Jonathan," Fiona said, her smile devoid of warmth. "You've been so preoccupied with your power games that you overlooked the foundation of your empire." She gestured sharply at Marcus. "He's not just a janitor. He's the key to everything." Marcus took a step back, his eyes darting to the wall of art like it held the answers or the curses of his existence. "You're wrong," he said, voice steady, yet shadowed with fear. "I'm just an artist." But the storm inside Jonathan's heart was reaching a fever pitch. "What do you mean, the key?" he pressed, struggling to catch up. "What are you talking about?" Fiona laughed, a sound like nails on a chalkboard. Do you really think this building stands on management alone? No, Jonathan. It's built on secrets, whispers, and foundations rooted in things you can't control. Marcus's art, it's more than just expression. It has value, connections you never fathomed. And you're just a pawn in our game. Jonathan's mind spun. It was a betrayal. His own executive had been playing both sides, lurking in the shadows, while he focused on a rival's threat. But even deeper than that, a lecherous question slithered to the surface. What secret did Marcus hold that tied him to these corporate machinations? Before Jonathan could vocalize his fury, the lights went out, plunging the room into abysmal darkness. A tense silence followed, punctuated only by the sound of hurried breaths and muffled whispers. Then, amidst the chaos, a single click rang out, cutting through the void. Jonathan gasped as a beam from a flashlight cut through the dark like a sword, illuminating Marcus's face, a visage marred, not just by weariness, but by secret knowledge. And for the first time, Jonathan saw fear etched clearly across the janitor's features. "Please, you don't understand." Marcus's voice trembled, echoing through the corridor, a plea that felt urgent, raw. "They're coming for me. They know what I've done." And in that revelation, the world tilted once again. The stakes weren't about Jonathan's empire. They were about survival. As the walls pressed in and the flashlight flickered, Jonathan faced a dreaded truth. Marcus was not just an artist, but a man tangled in a web of conspiracies that could ensnare them all. And now, whether by fate or folly, they were linked forever, hurtling toward an uncertain future. What had Jonathan stumbled upon? And could he untangle this mess before the darkness consumed them both? Jonathan felt the pulse of fear race through him as he took in Marcus's desperate plea. Shadows swirled, and the beam of the flashlight struggled against the backdrop of darkness, illuminating the strain etched across the janitor's face. The air crackled with the tension of unspoken truths. What had he done? Who was coming for them? "Stay back," Fiona commanded suddenly, her voice slicing through the air like a knife. She raised the flashlight high, the beam dancing across the close walls with urgency. The men behind her shifted, eyes darting between Jonathan and Marcus, their predatory instincts flaring. "You're in way over your heads here," she said, disdain dripping from her words as she eyed Marcus with thinly veiled contempt. "Fiona, stop." Jonathan's voice rose, indignation igniting his fear. "What do you know about this?" "More than you could possibly imagine." She stepped forward, a controlled aggression radiating from her. "That art, Marcus, it's not just your outlet, it's a roadmap. You painted your truths, secrets that could unravel more than just Jonathan's little empire here." Marcus paled, eyes flickering with dread. "You don't understand. I didn't mean to. I thought I was protecting." "Protecting what?" The question hung thick, suffocating in the air. Then it happened. An ear-splitting crash. The door shattered inward, splintering wood and chaos. Figures cloaked in dark suits surged into the room, faces obscured, eyes gleaming with malicious intent. The air thickened with the musky scent of their rush. Jonathan's heart sank. The storm outside paled compared to the tempest now unleashed within these walls. "Move!" shouted Fiona, shoving Jonathan aside as she instinctively reached for the janitor. "We have to contain this." Jonathan's breath caught in that moment. Marcus's facade broke completely. He darted toward the stacks of paintings, fingers trembling, and with a surprising ferocity, began tearing them down from the walls. "No, stop!" Jonathan shouted. But the urgency in Marcus's eyes left no room for doubt. "Art isn't just art, Jonathan. These pieces..." With desperate hands, he ripped away a final canvas, revealing a hidden compartment in the wall behind it. Inside lay a dossier overflowing with documents and photos, names, dates, and connections that tied directly to Jonathan's empire. The pieces clicked together too quickly for Jonathan to comprehend. "What have you done?" he breathed, the shock of betrayal striking him dead in his tracks. "I never wanted this to come to light," Marcus murmured, looking haunted as he backed away, his voice breaking. "But they threatened my family. I had to protect them." "Who?" Jonathan demanded, the world suddenly incomprehensible. The ties binding him to Marcus twisted tighter, darker. "The same people in those pictures," Marcus whispered, eyes wide and fearful. "They're not just coming for me, they're coming for you too." The realization hit Jonathan like frigid water. Marcus wasn't just hiding his passion. He had been living a double life, one entwined with dangerous shadows that crept far beyond the confines of his canvas. Jonathan stumbled backward, grappling with the enormity of the revelation. Weren't they supposed to be adversaries? Now Marcus was a victim of a larger game, ensnared in threads of treachery woven through their lives. Before Jonathan could process this new reality, one of the dark figures lunged forward, and a gunshot rang out. Deafening, shattering. Time seemed to suspend as hope flickered away, leaving an insatiable hunger for truth and survival. "First, the art," Marcus gasped, eyes darting once more to Jonathan, desperation fueling his gaze. "Then your life. They'll rewrite all of history." But what did that mean for Jonathan? For everything he had built? Suddenly all he could think was, he could trust no one. And the very foundation of their worlds was about to collapse. The echoes of the gunshot faded into looming silence. But the storm inside Jonathan surged as he faced the unthinkable truth. They were no longer just fighting for their lives. The very legacies they clung to were now irrevocably entwined in betrayal. And just like that, the hunt began. The echoes of the gunshot faded into looming silence, pregnant with unspoken fear. Jonathan's heart thundered in his chest, paralyzing him as he watched Marcus stagger back, blood pooling beneath his fingertips that clutched at a fresh wound. There was no time for shock. Survival outweighed all else. Jonathan grabbed Marcus, forcing him to the ground behind a tangle of crates, heart pounding like a war drum, desperate breaths mingling with the scent of cleaning supplies. "I've got you," he whispered, before the full scope of chaos crashed over him. Shadows prowled the entrance, figures shifting like predators poised to strike. The edges of his world blurred. Friends and foes had melded into each other, defining what safe even meant. "Get out!" Marcus choked. "You can't." His voice broke, the edge of panic, giving way to something darker. "They're here for you, Jonathan. You have to believe me." Before Jonathan could respond, the lights flickered back on, harsh and revealing, casting stark shadows of the intruders now closing in. Fiona's glacial stare locked onto them from the front. She smirked, grasping the gun still smoking in her grip. "Did you really think you could hide forever?" she sneered. "You made a grave mistake, turning the lights on. Now everyone can see." But it wasn't just the intrinsic threat of her words that made Jonathan's stomach lurch. A figure stepped forward from behind Fiona, and everything froze. A face so familiar, it chilled him deeper than the night's downpour. "Martin," Jonathan gasped, hardly believing his eyes. The man, long absent from his life, stood right there, impeccably tailored and utterly calm, a specter from his past that he thought was long buried. "Sorry to disrupt the reunion," Martin said, a disarming grin on his face. "But let's clear the air, shall we?" Fiona nodded, her predatory eyes narrowing in appraisal. "This is just the beginning, Jonathan. This is the dance of power, and your old friend is about to show you what real stakes look like." Images whipped through Jonathan's mind, 1,000 memories of Martin, of camaraderie, and futures intertwined. The comment slipped through his lips before he could grasp its weight. You're with her? You've joined forces? Oh. "Did you really believe you could keep all of this hidden?" he said, glancing back at Jonathan with a knowing look. "The paintings were never just art. You think we didn't know? You have no idea what you stumbled into." The breath lodged in Jonathan's throat as the pieces snapped together like a shattered puzzle. Martin had been lurking in the ether, orchestrating threads woven in deception. But why was he here now, drawing them into this darkened web? And who was truly the puppet master of this orchestrated chaos? "No," Marcus gasped, realizing the roles they played in this unfolding drama. "You can't do this." But before anyone could linger on the revelation, a loud crash reverberated through the corridor. An entrance door slammed open, revealing yet another layer of chaos. A swarm of dark suits flooded in, not all enemies, but remnants of alliances fractured. Noise erupted, emotions poured like rain, and a scene twisted into pure pandemonium. Then came a groan, low and raspy. From the chaos emerged Fiona's hand, bloodied but steady, pointing at Jonathan and Marcus. "You thought you could take everything?" she spat, eyes wild. "Welcome to the real game." Jonathan's mind raced. Everything was spiraling. Alliances were breaking and reforming in an instant. Martin had become not just a memory, but a menace reborn. And Marcus, once a simple janitor, was now thrust into the heart of a conspiracy older and darker than he ever imagined. The past and present collided in a brutal twist of fate, binding them all in strings of betrayal thicker than blood. "Fiona!" Jonathan shouted above the noise. "What do you want?" But Fiona merely grinned, her voice like glass breaking. "To show you the true meaning of power, Caught in the whirlwind of betrayal and possibility, Jonathan's heart surged with one resounding thought. Everything he believed had just shattered, scattering into the winds of a storm he could no longer contain. As the room swirled with turmoil, a horrifying question echoed. Who among them would rise, and who would fall as the stakes rose higher than life itself? The air was electric, thick with tension and dread, every heartbeat amplified in the clamor of chaos. Jonathan's gaze darted from Fiona's icy smile to Marcus's trembling form, the tableau swirling with urgency. Outside, the storm raged on, a sinister echo of the turmoil within. "Show you the true meaning of power," Fiona echoed, her voice a jagged knife, cutting through the din around them. Shadows loomed, figures pressed closer. Jonathan could feel the weight of impending violence, the palpable threat that thrummed like a live wire in the air. But just as the cacophony reached, everything froze. Breath caught, eyes widened. Then it happened. The ceiling splintered, and in an instant, an actual black-clad figure descended through the debris like a dark angel. A heavy thud followed, echoing against the polished floor as the intruder landed with cat-like grace, instantly capturing everyone's attention. For a moment, the world held its breath. "Enough!" the new arrival commanded. Voice deep and resonant, certainly familiar. Adrenaline surged through Jonathan as the figure raised their hood, revealing a face he thought he'd never see again. His estranged sister, Elena. "What the hell are you doing here?" Jonathan managed to choke out, eyes haunted, heart pounding, as disbelief crashed through him like a tidal wave. "Saving you, Jonathan, and I'm not alone." Elena stepped aside as a small army surged in behind her, a team clad in tactical gear, with sharp determination etched into their expressions. Fiona's self-assured grin faltered, confusion spreading like wildfire. You're with them?" she stammered, betrayal creeping into her voice. "Yes, and you've underestimated how deep this runs," Elena snapped. "This empire isn't built on stability. It's founded on lies and compromised integrity. But we're here to rip the veil away from everything you and Marcus thought you knew." A collective gasp traveled through the room as Jonathan's heart sank the deeper he turned to Marcus. He understood now, the flickers of recognition in Marcus's eyes as they locked onto Elena. "You," Marcus stammered, confusion morphing into horror. "You're my sisters, you're a part of this?" "Yes," Elena cut in, her voice resolute, weighing the storm in her eyes. "We all are. The paintings, your art, Marcus, it connects to something much bigger than just survival. It's evidence, a trail of corruption leading all the way back to the foundations of this building and beyond." Jonathan's world tilted on its axis. The pieces of his life, once firmly in place, started to unravel. All those years spent antagonizing Marcus, the long-forgotten sibling rivalry thrust into the forefront. But why hadn't he known? And before he could fathom this new reality, the altercation exploded anew. A thunderous crash punctuated the tension, A horde of figures emerged from the darkness. Not just corporate suits, but armed entities intent on chaos. The room ignited with frenzied energy. Chaos because, she whispered fiercely, you're part of a plan bigger than either of us. One you've been the unknowing key to all along. And in that moment of realization, Jonathan felt the ground shift beneath him. Not just for him, but for them all. Caught in the spiraling labyrinth of betrayal, Jonathan faced a potential revelation he was far too unprepared for. What did this mean? Was he truly just a pawn in a game he never wanted to play? As darkness enveloped, the final shot rang out, leaving everything and everyone hanging in a precarious balance. Would they find the truth before it swallowed them whole? The echoes of the gunshot faded into looming silence, pregnant with unspoken fear. Jonathan's heart thundered in his chest, paralyzing him as he watched Marcus stagger back, blood pooling beneath his fingertips that clutched at a fresh wound. There was no time for shock. Survival outweighed all else. Jonathan grabbed Marcus, forcing him to the ground behind a tangle of crates, heart pounding like a war drum. Desperate breaths mingling with the scent of cleaning supplies. "I've got you," he whispered, before the full scope of chaos crashed over him. Shadows prowled the entrance, figures shifting like predators poised to strike. The edges of his world blurred. Friends and foes had melded into each other, defining what safe even meant. "Get out!" Marcus choked. "You can't!" His voice broke, the edge of panic giving way to something darker. "They're here for you, Jonathan. You have to believe me." Before Jonathan could respond, the lights flickered back on, harsh and revealing, casting stark shadows of the intruders, now closing in. Fiona's glacial stare locked onto them from the front. She smirked, grasping the gun still smoking in her grip. "Did you really think you could hide forever?" she sneered. "You made a grave mistake turning the lights on. Now everyone can see." But just as the cacophony reached its peak, a thunderous boom resonated from the roof, vibrating through the steel girders of the building. The lights flickered again, sparks flying like angry fireflies, and an ominous silence washed over the room. Everything froze. Breath caught, eyes widened. Then it happened. The ceiling splintered, and in an instant, an actual black-clad figure descended through the debris like a dark angel. A heavy thud followed, echoing against the polished floor as the intruder landed with cat-like grace, instantly capturing everyone's attention. For a moment, the world held its breath. "Enough!" the new arrival commanded, voice deep and resonant, certainly familiar. Adrenaline surged through Jonathan as the figure raised their hood, revealing a face he thought he'd never see again. His estranged sister, Elena. "What the hell are you doing here?" Jonathan managed to choke out, eyes haunted, heart pounding as disbelief crashed through him like a tidal wave. "Saving you, Jonathan, and I'm not alone." Elena stepped aside as a small army surged in behind her, a team clad in tactical gear, with sharp determination etched into their expressions. Fiona's self-assured grin faltered, confusion spreading like wildfire. You're with them?" she stammered, betrayal creeping into her voice. Yes, you've underestimated how deep this runs, Elena snapped. This empire isn't built on stability. It's founded on lies and compromised integrity. But we're here to rip the veil away from everything you and Marcus thought you knew. A collective gasp traveled through the room. As Jonathan's heart sank, the deeper he turned to Marcus. He understood now, the flickers of recognition in Marcus's eyes, as they locked onto Elena. You, Marcus stammered, confusion morphing into horror. You're my sister's... You're a part of this? Yes, Elena cut in, her voice resolute, weighing the storm in her eyes. We all are. The paintings, your art, Marcus, it connects to something much bigger than just survival. It's evidence, a trail of corruption leading all the way back to the foundations of this building and beyond. Jonathan's world tilted on its axis. The pieces of his life, once firmly in place, started to unravel. All those years spent antagonizing Marcus, the long-forgotten sibling rivalry thrust into the forefront. But why hadn't he known? And before he could fathom this new reality, the altercation exploded anew. A thunderous crash punctuated the tension. A horde of figures emerged from the darkness. Not just corporate suits, but armed entities intent on chaos. The room ignited with frenzied energy, chaos enveloping them as bullets whistled through the air. Jonathan spun. A deadly game of hide-and-seek unfolding as wormholes of allegiance twisted tight around their fates. But amidst the pandemonium of shouts and firing, another revelation sliced through his thoughts. Elena was not just an ally. She was a strategic architect who had orchestrated this entire night, unknowingly pitting brother against brother in a grand chess game. The betrayal of her absence, her subterfuge, shattered him. Why? He shouted, voice lost in the tumult. Why would you let this happen? But just as they dodged another spray of chaos, Elena's eyes narrowed, catching the glint of an ominous figure emerging from the shadows behind her. Because, she whispered fiercely, you're part of a plan bigger than either of us. One you've been the unknowing key to all along. Then from the depths of the chaos, another voice emerged, smooth and chilling. Did you really think you could hide her from me? The room spun as Elena turned slowly toward the unmistakable figure slinking forward. Jonathan's presumed dead father, Robert, emerged from the darkness, a specter of their past. Father? Jonathan breathed, disbelief choking him. The storm of confusion raged within him. Surprised to see me? Robert's smile was sharp, a knife's edge. I've been watching. You all play your roles beautifully. But let's cut to the heart of it. Elena's expression darkened, fear warring with defiance. You shouldn't be here. This isn't your game anymore. Oh, but it has always been my game, Robert replied, turning his icy gaze to Marcus. And you, my dear artist, are the final piece in the puzzle I meticulously crafted. Your art holds the very keys to reclaiming everything I've lost. Betrayal stung like ice as the revelation crashed over Jonathan. Not only had his father returned, but he held the final thread of devastation that could dismantle their fragile alliance. The stakes climbed impossibly higher, twisting their past sins into a noose. As the chaos heightened around them, Jonathan realized that everything he thought he knew, every relationship strained, every alliance tested, was descending into a darker labyrinth of mistrust. And in that feverish moment, one question loomed above all. Who among them could truly be trusted? The room held its breath, the tension palpable, as Robert's presence twisted the air, thick with animosity and my little family, reunited at last under such precarious circumstances. "Stop this!" Jonathan shouted, heart racing as the conflicting emotions warred within him. Anger, betrayal, and the vestiges of hope that his father could somehow be redeemed. "You don't get to play the father card after abandoning us!" Elena stepped forward, lips pressed into a thin line, defiance radiating from her. "You're a monster, and this ends now, Robert." His father dismissively waved a hand, chuckling softly. "Oh, darling, you misunderstand my intentions. I'm here to build an empire, not destroy it." He turned back to Marcus, whose visible injuries and trembling fear became even more pronounced. "And you, my dear artist, represent the final brushstroke in a masterpiece long in the making." In that moment, the air thickened, loaded with uncertainty. Jonathan's instincts screamed at him to flee, to escape the web that had ensnared their lives. But just as the chaos erupted anew, gunfire cracking like thunder, shouts filling the space, something deep within him shifted. He had to protect Marcus, the man who held secrets that could topple everything they knew. But then, it happened. Elena gasped, her gaze shooting toward the ceiling where cracks splintered like lightning. A low rumble pulsed through the structure, a premonition of disaster crashing in waves of panic. "Get out!" she cried, urgency spilling from her voice. And in a blinding instant, the lights flickered, dimming to an oppressive darkness, momentarily suffocating their desperation. Jonathan felt a gut-wrenching surge of dread. "Where are you, Marcus?" he shouted, panic swelling as he realized the janitor was nowhere to be seen. "Right here," came a strained call from the shadows. Jonathan turned just in time to see Marcus leaping forward, clutching something in his hands. A small, hand-painted canvas that burst with vibrant color, even in the dim light. "You need to see this. It's not what you think." Before Jonathan could process, Marcus ripped it free, revealing it as a hidden map. A swirling, chaotic representation of their building and a complex undercurrent of connections. But it wasn't just the secrets of the company. It held something even more shocking. A trail leading back to Robert, as well as names and dates that sent shivers down Jonathan's spine. "Your father," Marcus panted, eyes wide, the fear palpable, as sweat glistened on his brow. "He's not just watching, he's orchestrating everything. The art. It's been tracking him all along." Time froze as Jonathan's heart stopped pounding, disbelief taking root. His father? the puppeteer of a tangled conspiracy? The implications cascaded over Jonathan like ice water, a dawn through darkness, shocking yet illuminating. The man he had called father was both architect and executioner, a predator cloaked in familial ties. "What do you mean?" Jonathan breathed, desperation igniting his voice. "How can that be?" And then came Marcus's revelation, the twist that changed absolutely everything. "Because, Jonathan," he said, swallowing hard, "I'm not just a janitor. I'm an undercover agent sent to expose your father, to expose everything, including you." The implications crashed like thunder, reverberating through Jonathan's soul. Betrayal blossomed anew, each word a nail in the coffin of trust built on lies. "You lied to me? All this time?" he gasped, voice shaking as the weight of the world bore down on him. But the shadow of confusion deepened as a horrifying thought emerged. "And now?" Jonathan shouted, fighting against the tide of revelation. Before Marcus could respond, the building shuddered violently, a warning not just of the chaos outside, but of the storm roiling within. Instinct screamed for survival as Jonathan glanced at Robert, a predator with a dark secret, and now the one they all must fight against. Would he take the plunge into the abyss of betrayal alongside Marcus? Or would the past consume them all before they could strike back? Everything hung in a balance, straining against the weight of impending horror. In that moment, it was clear. The true power struggles and hidden layers were just beginning to unravel. And the darkness was only getting started. Jonathan felt his heart race, the revelation echoing painfully in the shadows that threatened to swallow him whole. "I'm an undercover agent sent to expose your father." Marcus's words dangled in the air like a fragile thread, overstretched and ready to snap. Outside, thunder rumbled ominously. "You lied to me?" Jonathan gasped, each syllable a bitter pill. Deep inside, he felt a seeping despair. The lights flickered again, punctuating his panic as Marcus nodded, eyes wide with desperation and fear. "Jonathan, the art, it's all connected, deeper than you can imagine." Suddenly, a deafening crash reverberated through the building, the ground shaking beneath them as dust and debris rained from the ceiling. Jonathan caught a glimpse of Robert's malicious grin as their surroundings rocked back and forth. The sounds of chaos outside pierced through, a cacophony that foreshadowed a cataclysm of betrayal. "Enough of this chit-chat," Robert thundered, the chaos around him underscoring his words. "You think you're in control? You're just pawns in my game." With a swift movement, Robert drew a sleek handgun, aiming it right at Marcus. "You will not take away what is mine." Time seemed to elongate, seconds stretching into eternity. Jonathan lunged toward Marcus instinctively, desperation surging through his veins. "No!" he shouted, arms outstretched. The gunshot rang out, loud, crisp, tearing through the building's fragility like ripping silk. A startled gasp erupted from Elena as Jonathan's vision blurred with disbelief. Terror gripping his chest. But as the dust settled and the smoke wafted in muted curls, it wasn't Marcus who crumpled to the ground. Marcus stood frozen, wide-eyed, shock and relief blending into a fragile truce as he looked at the sight unfolding before them. Robert's aim shifted, his gun now pointed not at Marcus, but at a figure now crumpling behind him. Jonathan's stomach dropped as he processed the horrific image. Elena, falling to the floor, a dark stain spreading across her jacket. "No!" Jonathan screamed, agony ripping through him as he rushed to her side. Time collapsed as he knelt beside her, frantically cradling her head, panic swirling around them like a storm. "Elena, please stay with me. Jonathan." Her voice was a mere whisper, faint and shivering. "It's not what you think." "Don't say that. Please, just hold on." He could feel the warmth of her blood seeping through his fingers, an immediate, jarring truth searing into him. Then came a gasp from the shadows, an unexpected interjection. "You should have never followed the threads back to me, Jonathan." Jonathan's eyes lifted to meet the voice that interrupted their turmoil. Code Black, his father's dangerous confidant, and the man thought to be hidden behind layers of loyalty, now stepped forth from the darkness, a sinister smirk curling across his lips. "What? How?" Jonathan sputtered, shock igniting a fierce light within him. "Oh, dear boy, you were never meant to find out this way," Code Black taunted, brushing dust from his tailored suit nonchalantly, while cognitive dissonance spiraled into a maelstrom within Jonathan's mind. "Your family's history is steeped in lies, in darkness. All this was a setup, an elaborate game to see just how deep the betrayal ran." The truth slammed into Jonathan like a punch to the gut. Nothing was as it seemed. His father, the man he thought was simply a remnant of a broken past, had spun his entire life into this web. Everything was connected. Elena's covert actions, Marcus's infiltration, even his own rise to power had been a part of a greater deception, designed for a purpose he couldn't yet comprehend. "Jonathan, you have to." Elena's whisper drew his attention back. Her eyes were filled with tears, confusion etched into her features as they locked with his, time stretching impossibly between them. But as Code Black stepped closer, drawing nearer to them, with a calculating glimmer in his eyes, a new realization dawned. Could it be that he and Elena had been merely pawns this entire time? Was their position as siblings a deception as well? And then, a distant rumble shook through the building again, signs of inevitable collapse looming like a specter over them. Jonathan felt a swell of determination unfurling in his chest as chaos unfolded around him, a surge of betrayal, blood, and revelations threatening to tear apart the thin veil that held them together. "Believe in your choices, Jonathan," Code Black hissed as the chaos descended upon them, glancing at a hidden exit. "You have one shot at survival, and it's not with your family. Just know, the truth will always find a way." As he gathered Elena tightly to him, he whispered fiercely, "I will protect you, no matter what it takes." But as fate played its hand, the secrets laid thick, tangled in a play that was only just beginning. Jonathan understood one painful truth. Trust, once broken, could never truly be reformed. And while they fought through the storm of collapsing loyalties, the precipice of an even darker revelation loomed, ready to shatter their world anew. The air was thick with desperation as Jonathan tightened his grip around Elena, the warmth of her blood soaking into his hands. He could feel the heavy weight of betrayal pressing down on him, an unyielding force that promised to drown them in darkness. Every flicker of the failing lights cast monstrous shadows, morphing the world around them into a dreadful landscape of looming threats and stark revelations. "Hold on, please. Just hold on," he begged, urgency clawing at his throat. But just as Jonathan leaned in closer, the oppressive Jonathan's instinct screamed to shield Elena, to keep her safe in the chaos. But a crackling voice slithered through the noise, smooth and saccharine. "Isn't this a family reunion?" The voice dripped with malice as the figure stepped into the dim light, capturing everyone's attention. Jonathan's breath caught, his heart plummeting. It was his mother, Sophia, a woman he had long believed was lost to the shadows of his childhood, shadows he thought he had buried. "Mother?" he croaked, disbelief warping his voice. "You—" "Yes, dear," she interrupted, her demeanor cool and calculated. "Surprised to see me? You might even say shocked." Elena lay shivering in Jonathan's arms, confusion rippling through her pain. "How is this possible?" she managed, bewilderment flickering in her eyes. "You left us." "But I had to," Sophia responded, her icy tone unwavering. "I had no choice but to vanish. The family's legacy was at stake." "Legacy?" Jonathan's voice rose as fury enveloped him. "You abandoned us. You let it all burn." The walls trembled, and shadows danced dangerously close as Sophia brushed aside his anger with a wave. "You have no idea what I sacrificed for you. For the Empire. The very empire that Robert now threatens with his foolish gambits. Do you think you can play this game without me?" Furious energy crackled around them, a commingling of treachery bubbling to the surface. Jonathan felt the ground beneath him shift as pieces fell into place. His father, the secrets, and now his mother, crawling back into their lives with veiled intentions that sent shivers down his spine. "You're all tangled in a net you don't understand," she continued, struggling to mask her disdain. "Robert and his puppeteers, they're only part of the puzzle. I've been watching and waiting. Your family's history is steeped in deception, Jonathan, and it's my turn to reclaim what has always been mine." A sense of horror gripped Jonathan. Everything he thought he knew about his life, his family, was crumbling like dust in the wind. Those buried memories, those childhood wounds, this was the specter they had tried to forget, and she was back, dragging them into a game he didn't understand. "No!" Elena gave a soft, defiant cry, struggling against the tide of despair. "You can't just come back and expect us to follow your orders." "Oh, but you will," Sophia countered, her voice emerging as an icy threat. "Because whether you like it or not, I am your true protector, and right now, you need me, whether you acknowledge it or not." But the storm was building within Jonathan. He gripped Elena tighter, feeling the urgency of her heartbeat nestled beneath his palm. No, we need to get out of here. Thunder echoed outside, reminding them that time was running out. Behind them, the chaos unfurled anew, shadows shifting closer and closer, like wolves circling their prey. And then, just as the walls began to close in, a deafening explosion rippled through the air. The building shook violently, debris raining down, a sudden surge of violence that twisted the fabric of their reality. Jonathan's body reacted instinctively, shielding Elena as chaos erupted in a rush of sound and blinding light. When the dust settled, a collective gasp wove through the room. The chaos simmered down, and Jonathan's heart stopped. Standing amidst the debris, eyes gleaming with ferocity, was Marcus, not wounded, but transformed. "I'm done hiding," he shouted, as his true identity revealed itself beneath the layers of deception, shaking the foundations of the very empire they had fought to protect. Jonathan's mind whirled as he watched the transformation, confusion melding into terror. Who was Marcus truly? In that pivotal moment, it hit him like a thunderclap. Marcus was not just an innocent janitor or undercover agent. "What did you mean by that, Marcus?" he shouted above the din, desperation lacing his words. A smile cracked Marcus's steely exterior, a glint of something darker simmering just beneath the surface. "It's time you learned the truth about your family, Jonathan," he declared, his voice slicing through the tension with chilling clarity. "I'm the one orchestrating everything." And just like that, the walls of Jonathan's world crumbled again. Every ally, every supposed truth spiraled into a realm of unknown alliances and hidden agendas. As Jonathan's heart thumped wildly inside his chest, the ground shifted beneath him, leading to one stark realization: the battle for truth had only just begun, and every player had their secrets yet to unfold. The dust began to settle as the chaos stilled, revealing a battlefield where shattered trust lay among the broken pieces of their lives. Jonathan struggled to wrap his mind around Marcus's confession, the truth hitting him like a freight train. "Orchestrating everything?" he echoed, his voice a mix of disbelief and fear. "Why would you?" "Because," Marcus responded, urgency in his tone, "I had to protect you from the darkness our families have created. They're playing a game you don't even realize you're part of." Jonathan's mind raced. This was not just his family's legacy at stake. It was something much deeper. Elena's blood-stained shirt flickered like a beacon of reality. The fight was bigger than any of them. "What do we do now?" he asked, desperation seeping through his voice. Elena took a shaky breath, eyes filled with grit and pain. "We end this," she said, her strength surfacing despite her injuries. "We expose the truth." Sophia's face twisted in rage, and she stepped forward. But Robert caught her arm, bringing the reality of their situation into sharp focus. "You all think you can take this from me? Every move your little agents have made has been anticipated." The cracks in the ceiling drew wary eyes as thunder rumbled above them, a grim reminder of time slipping away. each second was a fight against the growing storm. Jonathan knew this was their moment, or nothing at all. "Enough talk," he shouted, forcing his voice to steady as he looked at Marcus. "Let's take control of this." With a fierce nod, Marcus stepped forward, placing his hands on the remnants of a large canvas, a piece of their fate written in the colors that splattered across it. "Your father's empire is built on fear. Let's give it back to the people." Elena pushed herself up, determination etched in her features. "We show the world who Robert really is." As the ground shook beneath them, Jonathan pulled them close. "Together, we reveal everything: the art, the lies, the truth." With a gathering storm echoing their urgency, they prepared to expose the secrets that had imprisoned their lives for too long. The sound of sirens grew louder outside, pulling them from their resolve. They moved out as one, determined to face the chaos together. As they navigated the darkened hallways, shadows danced beside them, but their shared strength blazed brighter than the darkness that had haunted them. In the end, they reached the elevator shaft, their hearts racing in unison. As the doors slid open, Jonathan turned back, looking at Marcus and Elena. "No matter what happens, I won't lose you again." With one last shared glance that said it all, they stepped into the light of safety. The world outside awaited them, ready to witness the truths they would unveil together. But in the shadows, Robert and Sophia exchanged a knowing look, the wheels of fate still turning, and the game not yet over. As the first glimmer of dawn peeked into the distance, a single paintbrush lay forgotten in the corner, untouched, waiting for the next story to unfold. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Share this video right now with at least 5 friends who must know how this ends. Show your support now. You must be part of this community.